My guest today is Karunavira, also known as KV for his students. KV has been teaching mindfulness-based practices long before it became the mainstream necessity of our modern times. Such practices can combine Buddhist philosophy influences with Eastern Chinese medicine, for instance. With over 30 years of accumulated knowledge, Karunavira embodies honest awareness. He was ordained a Buddhist monk in the late 80s into the Triratna Buddhist order, of which his name results from, Karunavira. Through counseling work and movement practices, KV creates his own methodology and approach to mindfulness with attentive care for both the body and mind, giving students a modern approach to mindfulness. KV keeps reminding us, the students, of the deep connection with our body and mind through generous humor, a light spirit, and self respect, showing us how we can easily introduce pockets of awareness into the daily life. Welcome, KV, to Movement is My Constant.
Well, thank you for such a generous introduction. Yeah, very
Welcome.
lovely.
So, I usually start with asking my guests about childhood influences, those early stages of our development. Sometimes only in retrospective are we able to see the importance of those moments and actually understand how they influence our life and our passion, the work we do. So, yeah, what influences marked your childhood that you connect to the work today?
Oh, if I go right back to my early childhood, the simple fact that I didn't even think about movement. So, not thinking about movement is great. I just lived where I could run outside into the country and play with friends all day. In the winter and summer, just play in the woods, on the downs. And I am in the south of England, so I live really close to the South Downs National Park. So I just think in terms of movement, yeah, it was just everything was movement. It was just uh, okay. Later on, I joined what used to be called the Scouting movement.
Okay.
So the Scouting movement is interesting. They call it movement, isn't it? The movement, um, and that was with kayaking and climbing and
Mm.
caving, potholing, running, and but I think by the time I got to be a teenager, I was kind of inherently a little bit shy, a little bit not introverted, but a little bit shy of big groups, and I used to love doing the long distance running in the countryside.
Mm.
So yeah, there's nothing particular except there was no limits, there was no restrictions. The newspapers hadn't reported horrible things about childhood um, injuries, and it was because it was just a freer time. My mum didn't know where I was.
Mm.
She's a loving mother, but she didn't have any idea what I was doing because we were just boys playing and girls playing, and it was.
Yeah.
So I think my first sense of my childhood, I felt completely free, and I now look at my own, my own son's development, and even in that period of time, um, yeah, it's changed a lot with
Mm.
traffic and yeah, and the sense of danger in around us. So yeah, it makes me feel a bit sad that children have to be kept so safe they can't move properly. They can only move in adventure playgrounds where
Yeah.
it's not the same as being on your own in countryside. It's not the same.
Also, the experiences you've had on the countryside gave you probably sort of 360-degree awareness of what's around you and how you could interact with it in a
Yeah,
more
but as
mindful.
children, you don't know any of this. You're just
No,
alive and interested in everything, and
you're connected.
yeah, not mindful because I wasn't aware that I was doing all this, but I can sense this freedom. It gave me a baseline idea of life,
Yeah,
which is very helpful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It almost sounds like it's your right to be alive, right?
yeah,
That's just
Yeah.
a simple way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
were there people around you playing any role on the influence?
Yeah. Well, if I skip to the more as an adult, a young adult, teen, at college, university, yeah, I just became very interested in things Eastern, um, the philosophy from China and
Mm.
the politics too. In the early days, I had big pictures of Mao Zedong and Che
Oh.
Guevara on my walls, and I was a bit naive, I guess, but I
Mm.
love the idea of people living together without financial hierarchy.
Okay, because that was
Yeah.
not the case, you would say, where you were living.
Well, no, the UK has got a class system and it's people with money. I didn't have much money,
Mm.
but yeah. So I liked things Eastern seemed very attractive. Um, so early reading included The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is a text describing a meditation of the body where you circulate using intention, you circulate awareness around the body. And I found it deeply fascinating. And that led me on to a number of other influences, but finally to practice in the martial arts. So looking up in my 20s Tai Chi
Mhm.
and then Shotokan Karate. So they became big passions of mine.
Mhm.
The Tai Chi and also the harder style Shotokan. Teachers had an influence on me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how was that process? Those teachers, how was the process of learning those arts? Because I believe once you shared with me the ego mind, where you were really focused on the achievement of that, also that physical status, if you could call, of those arts versus the internal growth, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know, but the Shotokan karate just spoke to the hero,
Mm.
spoke to the heroic and yeah, the high energy. As a young man, it was a fantastic way of, exploring these archetypes, the hero. You see them on the films, like Superman and Bruce Lee. It's a way that I could actually embody some of those
Mm.
archetypes. And the
Mm.
Tai Chi had this more spiritual, um, mysterious quality to it.
Mm.
And I once saw when I was in my late teens someone doing Tai Chi in a park. I thought, whoa, so whoa, whatever that is, I want to do that. And then I just, and so a very deep attraction for that kind of, I don't know, I can now give it words, but at the
Okay.
time I couldn't give it words. It just looked very beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah.
very whole. I mean, these days I would give it words like the body moving as an integrated whole,
Mm.
mind, body completely unified.
Yeah.
But then I later studied yoga in the Iyengar style, became a teacher of Iyengar yoga. And there, the integration of mind and body is very well mapped out in Indian yoga.
Mm.
But it's I don't know. I don't know. It didn't ever really meet my needs for a sense of whole body integration in the same way that Tai Chi did.
Yeah.
Ashtanga yoga then came in. Ashtanga yoga with series one and two has more of a feeling of connectedness through the body because the whole body is moving in a series of sequences.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about the Tai Chi which allows for a deeper calming of the system
Mm.
and a deeper opening of the system, not just physical opening, but a kind of I don't know. I can't say which is better, but for me, the Tai
Yeah.
Chi held this a kind of what is it? A sense of infinite exploration of how the body can move and how the mind and the body can move together. When I
Yeah.
say mind moving in Tai Chi, the mind leads. So there's a phrase which is where intention goes, awareness goes. Where awareness goes, chi follows, chi goes.
Mm.
So it's very much a sense that the language of awareness, of attention, which we use in mindfulness, in the Chinese Tai Chi Qigong tradition, it's very much what they're talking about. Qi is awareness. It's
Mhm.
moving. And it moves along lines of intention. So where intention goes, Qi follows.
Mhm.
So this sense of integrating the mind body, that's a big thing to say, but it's not just the mind is a lot of things. It's intention is a very important part of mind, a function of mind. So you're training intention
Mhm.
very moment by moment, not just an idea, but embodied, working with intention. So it's deeply unifying,
Yeah.
deeply, and so therefore deeply satisfying,
Yeah.
and therefore deeply healing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you
Yeah.
could say where happiness goes, health follows.
Mm.
I mean, there's a lot of science around that, a lot of studies that show happiness is a predictor of well-being and health. Depression is a predictor of cancer, heart disease, and a
Exactly.
whole load of other diseases, bowel.
Exactly.
So contentment, at least, is a predictor of health.
Yeah.
And I find that the Qigong Tai Chi practices, yeah, they really do cultivate contentment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I've just gone on a rather long way there, but
No, not at all. It's very aligned. I think it's also interesting to the way you're describing it and my own personal experience. I relate to the when you were trying to also develop an inquisitive and observatory mind in the students in us. When you are doing your Qi Kung exercises, what is open and what is closed. And that's how I relate to what you are now saying about the awareness that comes after with those movements.
yes.
And then you can see the chi or not, where is closed, and what then you can stay and observe. It's sort of a journey.
Mm.
And perhaps the Yigangar, I cannot say that word, the yoga practices you've studied,
Iyengar.
Yingangar,
Iyengar. Yeah.
it's more of a structure. You are following a series of postures, perhaps, and more. I've explored also that practice a little bit, and it's more
Mm.
structural. There's a little bit more challenge and
Mm.
tension in my experience.
I think if you go into if I give more time to the Iyengar yoga, it can be very similar. This sort of deeper opening of the muscles of joints. I guess I got captivated by something more Chinese,
Yeah,
Far Eastern. I just got
influence.
captivated. There's a certain quality of heat, or what I call heat in Indian yoga. A
Mm,
kind of what it can easily be for me forcefulness, striving, which just doesn't make sense with Tai Chi.
mm,
Unless you're doing pushing hands, and then you can get competitive. But so there's something about Indian yoga, the Iyengar yoga, which it, well, in the end, my body made me stop because I damaged my both my knees in with yeah with the cartilage, mainly to do with forcing in the yoga postures,
yeah.
and then crashing about with in the karate dojo, you know, 2 or 3 times a week for hours,
Mm,
thrashing down, up and down, up and down. In the end, my knees just stopped working. So
okay.
I had to have operations on cartilage. And in a way, it showed me that my striving had to stop. So
Mm,
then I switched to softer yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong as a main discipline.
yeah. And if in those previous experiences that were more maybe the ego mind or the hero uh,
Mm.
feeling, And you were you focused in the body experiences when you shifted then to those more gentle sort of approaches, although they can also be intense. How did you feel about, that ego? Did it immediately dissolve, or were you struggling there?
But one of the great losses in my life, because I had two black belts. I had, it was my life. My part of
Mm.
my self-image was that I was, yeah, I had a black belt in karate,
Wow.
two of those, and giving it up was a big loss. I really felt one of the first times I felt the sense of how myself was associated with particular skills. Before that, it was just a whole, I was just, just all, I had no sense of myself. I was just a self. But yeah, loss often teaches us things. So when I had to stop with the karate, there was a deep sense of loss and having to find myself in a different way. So the part of me which was heroic and striving just got involved in a different way. you know, in a spiritual, within Buddhism, I got more, yeah, I think it got channeled into a spiritual direction, which wasn't bad, but then I had the equivalent failure of the knees spiritually, like where the point where the ego wasn't going to go anywhere. I couldn't carry on in the same way. So I had a kind of an equivalent collapse of the knees in the spiritual life as well, where I had to just stop and come to it from
Yeah,
a more honest position, I guess.
right.
Less driven.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And
all those years of heroic striving were really important for me.
yeah.
They gave me something which I wouldn't have got from the Tai Chi or the yoga. I needed something strong to engage with. And the fantasies, the mythology of the super person, that I think was all very helpful. It had to stop in the end, but it was I think sometimes there's a premature giving up
Mm,
of if you like egoism,
mm,
so that people bypass an important learning about where the ego just has to give up because it has to give up.
yeah,
So you're led by an idea rather than, I guess, a more of an embodied sense of having to stop.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
I was glad to have had the succession of movement practices I've had because they each gave me something.
yeah, yeah. And I can imagine also the support from your learnings in the Buddhist philosophy that also helped to navigate through those times in a more deeper sense.
Oh yes. Without some of this deeper sense of what the world is, like, I don't, it's not really Buddhism. It's more a clearer sense of reality,
Mm,
one not tied up with illusions of self.
yeah.
Without that, it would all be very difficult to move to a less self inward kind of
Yeah.
fixed view. So in Buddhism, you have the sense of what's important is you see that the self is not fixed. This
Hmm.
is the fundamental teaching. That there's no fixity, there's no solidness. Everything's flow and flux, movement. And that's incredibly important because that's the way nature is. From quarks to well, now the inside quarks, there's other energies they're discovering in the larger hadron collider. There's new particles, new forces, but it's all movement.
Yeah.
It's all movement. There are, this is the mysterious thing, there are what they call fundamental particles.
Mm.
Now you want to know, do they move?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I'm just saying, living my life more in harmony with the truth of change, of flow, of
Yeah.
flux, of movement,
Hmm.
of not being so fixed, that's incredibly freeing.
Mm.
It's also scary because you've got nothing so much to hang on to. But so without that underpinning Buddhist philosophy, or yeah, call it that, it would be very difficult to really embrace the truth of change.
Yeah,
It would seem scary and fear, full of fear. So
exactly.
the wider, bigger picture isn't full of fear.
Yeah,
But in order to embrace that, you have to give up a sense of fixed self. Well,
exactly.
that just it dissolves slowly, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And move away from those structures that you find are so important to navigate
Mm,
your life, I guess.
mm,
Like the
mm.
black belt can be a structure that you are
Yeah,
attached to. And when you
yeah.
remove that, you can go deeper.
Oh, it's an endless list. There's a yoga teacher, mindfulness teacher, parent, you know,
Exactly.
son, all these things, these structures,
Yeah.
they're all important and lovely and beautiful, have beauty in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I tie myself to them, then I'm not really free. Relationship between structure and freedom, which is very important. We need structures to enable freedom, but structures can limit freedom.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit philosophical, but if you're tied to the structure of qigong or tai
Mhm.
chi, and trying to get it right as a structure, you're not really living inside it.
Mhm.
But the structure, the form, enables a sense of freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's easy to get lost in words and ideas, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It is. So we'll just take it in little sips. But that is a
Yeah.
fantastic. Once you understand this and can free yourself, it's a fantastic principle, experience, etc. So
Mm.
I wanted to go back or dive a little bit into the qigong or the practices of qi that you perhaps you want to tell a little bit about that, just for people who don't know what it is. I would like to,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there are many kinds of qigong, and people who speak Chinese would be criticizing the way I say
Oh,
qi. Um, I can't pronounce the terminology very well.
mm,
My English mouth doesn't do it, but I practice a kind of qigong called Shiba Shi,
yeah.
which is in Chinese it means 18 movements, 18 postures. And it's a relatively new development, less than 200 years old. It's quite actually much less. But it's based upon a very long tradition of Chinese yoga, the Qigong yoga. Um, so it's a kind of a very lovely way of practicing Qigong,
Mm,
using the breath alongside the moving body. So a lot of Qigong doesn't do that in the same way. The Shiba Shi uses the in breath, the out breath uh, um, with each movement. So it's a
mm,
unification of breath and body movement. So
mm,
the physical structure moves in relationship to the natural breath.
okay.
So to give you an example, if I just say there's one movement which two hands rise,
Mm,
the whole body rises and falls. So you can't see the whole of my body, but my legs would be coming up, my legs going down. And the reference point for this movement is the breath. So the idea here is that the body follows nature. The body is receptive to nature. So as I breathe in and breathe out, what I'm doing is letting the breath, allowing the breath to be what it is, natural breath,
yeah.
and the body follows the breath. So
Yeah.
this is very, for me, this links up with Sir David Attenborough.
Oh, because of the
Yeah,
picture. Wonderful.
the importance of listening to and being in harmony with nature.
Yeah.
This basic error that humankind has made, um, which I'm not sure we'll get through eventually, but I don't know, see. But this basic error that we've made is we've not been living in harmony, sufficient harmony with nature.
Yeah.
And the Qigong practice I'm talking about practices living in harmony with nature because the breath is nature.
Yeah.
It's the most natural thing that is happening all the time. I mean, all of us is nature, but the observable, usable dynamic of breath is nature.
Yeah.
And we can then become receptive to nature. So there's a principle about the Qigong I'm doing, which is becoming receptive to the natural world, which is a very beautiful thing. Allowing nature to be happening. The
Mm.
breath is happening.
Mm.
And
Mm.
not just sitting on a cushion cross-legged trying to work with your mind, but the whole body
Yeah.
engaging with this.
Yeah.
Whole body working with the breath. And then the principle then is one of integration. So this, Qigong masters might disagree with me, but this is my sense of it.
Yeah.
After 40 years of practice or so, it's
You
my
are
sense is,
entitled to that.
yeah, but it could still be wrong. You get lots of old, not very wise people, but my sense is integration is one of the two main principles with the Qigong practice and Tai Chi.
Mm.
One is integration, in that there's no part of the body moves separately. If this hand goes up, there's got to be a movement within my body
Yeah.
as well. The movement in the body could be very small in the center, but there's a sense of movement in the body that's reflected in the extremities, in the hands and feet and head. So there's no isolated movement. There's no, and one of the problems with our lives today, I'm going to get a bit philosophical here, is disintegration. Families not together,
Mm-hmm.
disconnect between refugees and other people,
Yeah.
disconnect between men and women, between Muslim and non-Muslim, between Shia and Sunni. It's all these disconnections between people,
Yeah.
and the Qigong is embodying connection and integration of not just body and muscles, but mind and intention and breath. So as far as I can see, it's the most complete integration practice I do. When I do meditation, I try to keep that quality that I'm having the Qigong in the meditation.
Yeah.
I work with the body movement, the body energies. I work on my mind using the metaphor of body energies,
Yeah. Yeah.
somatic approach to the mind.
Mm.
So that's the first principle. The second principle, as far as I can tell, is one of opening. So in Qigong and in Tai Chi, there's a principle that you don't close,
Yeah.
you open. Now, if you do this exercise with me now, if you stretch out really wide, that's not open. Can you feel the tension in the joints?
Yes.
It's locked.
Yeah.
And there's a point here where that's not open.
Yeah.
And there's something somewhere between, and it's very mysterious. It's something you can play with this for hours, where it's an optimum openness of
Exactly.
the muscles, the bones, the energy flowing. It's interesting, this little middle finger called the master finger,
Mm-hmm.
when that's slightly expressed, this area becomes more open. Go,
Yeah.
this area of the palm. So, yeah, practicing, it's a lifelong, amazing thing just to practice that.
Yeah.
How can my hands be open? How can my heart be open?
Yeah. Yeah.
How can my back and chest and so openness is a major principle in meditation, in well-being, in psychology, and in everything I can think of actually. But
Yeah.
so the Qigong practices opening the body, and of course, using the Hermetic principle, what is below is reflected above, So what is in the body is reflected in the mind and then in the spirit. So a body practice that practices integration and openness would then be quite naturally reflected in the way the mind operates,
Mm.
the way the heart operates. So I think this is really important that we in the Western world we tend to focus on this bit of us, and
Yes,
we develop ideas,
right.
theories, and
Wonderful
like
as well. Yeah,
it can be very helpful. It's not unimportant. This is the body too, but
yeah,
it's only a very small part, a disconnected part of the body.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
I'll leave it there. Openness and integration would be the two
Integration
things.
and the
Yeah.
receptivity. And I think it's interesting because I was questioning myself about what makes an embodied practice.
Mm.
And, maybe for some people, just the fact that they are in front of a mirror, just doing, I don't know, very intense, hard, strength work, they might consider that an embodied practice because they are working with their body, but not
Yeah.
necessarily exactly because of those reasons we were just touching upon, because probably your goal of it is completely different. It's just the creating those tensions on your body.
In the gym, this part is often in the future
Mm,
or the past. So
exactly.
actually, it's not an integration. You're doing your body work, but you're not doing mind body work.
Mm,
The thing that yoga, qigong, tai chi, pilates, walking in the countryside,
yeah,
these are things which you unify mind body. A
exactly.
lot of the other stuff isn't really connecting mind body,
Yeah,
not in the same way. It's quite more difficult.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you could also say the reason you integrate these practices into your, so essentially what makes these mindfulness based approaches, why do they matter? And they are
Mm.
this whole combination, right?
Yeah, so mindfulness-based approach, that's what I do for a living now. I train teachers at Bangor University um, and elsewhere
Mhm.
in what's called mindfulness-based approaches. Um, yeah, they collect together a number of different practices, some more body-based, some less body-based, but they're all based on a principle of embodiment. So mindfulness-based, what does all that mean? There's jargon, isn't it? Mindfulness, awareness. So awareness doesn't have any limits. It includes awareness of body, of mind, of heart. Maybe you could even go further and talk about spirit or energy or something like this. But yeah, so where, where am I going with this? I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Not,
No, I
yeah,
guess what you were trying to say is how those the complexity or the connection between all those practices, those skills that they give you, right? The awareness, the connection with mind, body, and that they really open up all those receptors for the
yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to really was that um, although mindfulness-based approaches use a lot of what looks like meditation techniques, people are sitting down on chairs or on the floor on cushions, they're meditating. Meditation in this context of mindfulness is very much a body-based practice. The body is, you're integrating the body and mind, you're working with the mind through the body. So, yeah, mindfulness-based approaches are a more systematic way of introducing people to these principles of awareness, integration, openness,
Mm-hmm.
and usually they take the form of an 8-week course, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. A lot of people have heard of them, like mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based living, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. They're all different approaches to helping people live more fluidly,
Mm-hmm.
more creatively, less tied up, less fixed, less stuck. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Mindfulness for unsticking.
I love it. You could put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. It's also this, you also mentioned it once, it's the slow movement for the fast activity. So the understanding slow, so that when you are ready to take action, you come from a different place, you come from that practice.
Yeah, it's not necessarily slow,
Yeah,
although
not
it looks like that. It's more like from the brain, human brain has got two major functions. One is to do with avoiding danger, and the other is to do with just resting. So we're designed through evolution with these two ways of operating. Uh, and when you're living close to people in like in cities or families, the stress reaction, which is the one to do with avoiding fear and avoiding danger, that applies to people. So there's a lot of stress, quite natural stress that happens amongst primates, amongst humans when they're in groups, any kind of groups. It's a challenge of difference and do I fit in? So stress is a feature of being human. Um, and what we're doing really, I guess, is learning to take action from the other mode of being. Not when you're in the stress mode, your decision making isn't very good. Your ability to reference to the past isn't very good. You have a narrow, neurologically, a very narrow focus for survival,
yeah,
and that's not a good place to make any decisions from.
yeah,
So the mindfulness teaches people to move out of that for a moment, for just for, like you called it, pockets. I love that in your introduction. Little pockets of awareness, which you can just, it can take a minute or less
yeah,
to move into awareness. Let the system, the fear and fight, flight, freeze type, that kind of danger, yeah, that system can then calm enough to allow the other system to come online. It's really like having two programs on your computer, two bits of software. When one's working, the other one isn't. It's in the background there, but it's not really functioning. So it's about having the ability to say, okay, I'm going to now switch from this normal way of being, which is entirely valuable. Get things done. We call it the doing mode. You get things done, you make things fantastic, but if it's pressurized, it doesn't give rise to what you might call blue sky thinking, creative thinking, effective team work, effective parenting.
mm,
It isn't that effective. It's good for getting something done, but
yeah,
it's not good for this overview, sense of what's needed now.
exactly.
So yeah, we're training people to step out of one bit of software into using that terrible metaphor of software, into a software called being mode,
Mm,
just momentarily.
yeah,
Doesn't take long. Mind clears, the hippocampus comes online, the prefrontal cortex comes back into functioning properly, and then you get a flow. There's
yeah,
the movement of the mind, a synaptic flow. Ideas come forward, memories come forward, images come forward,
mm,
and you know what to do
yeah,
a little bit more than you did when you were in this more tight doing mode.
exactly.
It's as simple as that. We all have this capacity to step out of this doing into being. It's quite natural,
Yeah,
but we don't practice it much because most of our world is orientated around the doing bit,
yeah,
and the being bit isn't monetized. You don't get any money for it. You
yeah,
don't get any pats on the back for it. The
exactly.
parents don't always celebrate it.
Yeah,
Good teachers would.
yeah,
Good parents would celebrate the quiet moments.
yeah,
But I mean, unfortunately, parents want to see results. Their kids do well in sport, in school, and so the doing aspect is even comes into the parenting.
yeah,
And this other bit, which is about reflection, love, appreciation, approach, that doesn't get so praised or looked after or cultivated.
yeah. It's this quantitative versus the qualitative. We are living in a
Yeah.
very quantitative society. Give me the
Yes.
results today. No.
Yes. So in a way, it's very simple. The movement practices support this non-instrumental aspect of life,
Yeah.
this non-doing, less instrumental,
Yeah.
more being.
Yeah.
Um, unless you use the movement practices with an intention of doing, of becoming great or strong or best, or so really, I guess the intention behind your movement practice needs to be looked at continuously.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with competitiveness. I mean, I loved all that, but it has a limitation as well.
Yeah.
So therefore, I think when your movement practice needs dialogue, you need to be speaking with mentors and teachers who understand this point and can help guide you. I guess if you want to be competitive, to be really competitive, but to guide this process of becoming more aware of the intention. Um, but actually, it happens quite naturally too through life. You know,
Yeah.
it seems to happen quite naturally.
Yeah, yeah. But I do like this moment where we are touching upon the importance of the slowing down, or those little pockets. I believe
Mm,
that once you do it, you really incorporate others, you include everything that is around you, by moving away
mm,
from that narrow stance
mm.
where only you exist and only you matter because you're
Yes.
on your survival mode. You all of a
Yeah.
sudden you realize, wait, there's more around me, and you create different strategies if you like it, but with the intention of including, and
Mm.
yeah, the receptivity that you were saying. That's how I.
You could do this with MRI scanning. You can show this actually happening at the level of neurology.
Mhm.
The prefrontal area has a right and a left dominance. Um, it just sort of gets formed in childhood, just which one is more approach to do with including and opening, the other is to do with more task, evaluating, rational. But they're both operating together and they cross over. But there's a predominance on the right of the approach, of being open, connected, receptive.
Yeah.
And they've done studies measuring the activity in the prefrontal area before and after an 8-week mindfulness course. So research by Lutz and Davidson.
Mhm.
You can look these up.
Yeah.
And they noticed that even after just a short 8-week course, the set point it's called, which is more dominant, has changed. So you measure that in terms of how bright the synapse, when you MRI scan, you're measuring blood flow, so
Right.
which indicates activity.
Mm.
So you can see that the activity on the approach, appreciative side, the connected side, that is more lit up, and it stays that way. That's what I find interesting. It doesn't go away after a few weeks. It stays. You've
Mm.
changed the set point.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic that we can change our brain.
Yes.
It's not like we get fixed in childhood because we had a funny teacher or parent. We can change.
Yeah.
And it's a underline underpins the importance of behavioral approaches to the mind.
Mm.
What we do changes what our mind does and how our mind works. What we do with our mind shapes our mind. And when I say mind, I don't mean the mind, I mean the heart mind. The mind isn't the brain, it's the heart mind. It's the intuition, emotional base as well as the rational base.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exciting, isn't it?
It's
We human
exciting.
beings.
Exciting. It's really, I love this. It's all this concept also of neuroplasticity, right?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
you do adapt, how you can change. And I love it because well, a big part of our lives, we are taught that, when you reach a certain age, or that people don't change. I do not believe in that, honestly. I'm like, no.
It is true
So
that people change slowly.
slowly.
It
Okay.
is true that some people can get quite stuck.
Yeah, but
And
the
the thing,
capacity.
we have the capacity, we all have the capacity to change. There are
Mhm.
some people born with such strong neurodiversity that it's very difficult to make those changes.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then it's up to the rest of society to make changes to include those people.
Mhm.
So I think the outward looking aspect of this is also important.
Yeah.
It's not just my brain that can, I can adapt to others too. I can include others. So yeah, the importance of awareness practices, which is all that we've been talking about really, in terms of how we live together on this planet, how we work together. And yeah, acknowledging some people can't change that quickly. The Trump followers are not going to change quickly. We had to somehow work with, that's a whole, from
Yeah.
their perspective, a really important values. They have values and beliefs. And
Mhm.
so harmony means working with
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, which is
So
really challenging.
yeah, it's very, very challenging. Also because at some point you need to know when to let go or when to pursue. You need to kind of make decisions through that
Yeah.
path. And so again, going back to, I guess that after all the work that you're doing with students or, or clients or etc., you, besides the measurement, you can see in the quality of their life. So you do also recognize the impact of, yeah, these mindfulness-based approaches on their lives, how they're.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, I can't speak for other people, but they meet me in the street and they say, "Oh, made my life changed." They say things like this. But for me, I could gloss it, as I say. I could say that it makes me slightly less reactive.
Mm,
These days, I'm slightly less quick to be critical or whatever else negative emotion is there,
yeah.
embarrassed, competitive. So
Mm,
slightly less reactivity.
yeah.
But I think it's precious that slight reduction of reactivity gives space around me where
Mm,
other people can be different.
yeah. Yeah.
If
And it,
I'm reactive, other people will be reactive. If I'm not reactive, they have a chance to be less reactive.
exactly. Exactly. And I think it also adding to that, it's also about, you are still reactive, but you're coming from a different space. You can, it doesn't mean you're going to be apathic, like that you cannot have any reactions anymore. You have them, but they're much deeper because you've
Yeah.
connected to your core, to your
Yeah, it's
more.
not apathy.
Yeah.
It can be very strong.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
can look like anger.
Yeah.
If you've got to sort something out, you can be very energetic,
Yeah.
but you're not attacking the person.
Yeah.
Reactivity becomes very personal usually.
Yeah.
You get the content gets mixed up with the person. So I think what's important when we have to have strong action,
Mm,
strong, it's not it's more still a response. What's important is that we see the bigger picture.
yeah.
And this is where a stress reaction doesn't allow a bigger picture. It really is just sort out this little bit here. So
Yeah.
this opening out to the bigger picture is just not possible. So it's a very, very simple, easily done bit of work. you know,
Of
a
course. It takes your
few
life.
years of practice, and there'll be enough change to make quite a difference to you and your family.
That's absolutely true.
But I mean, it is. No one gives you presents for it. You don't get any increase of salary for it. You know, to start with, it's just very difficult. You have to get up a bit earlier and practice, and
Mm,
so actually, and you have to see your habits.
yeah.
You have to make friends with the nasty you, the
Mm,
selfish you, the bored person. So this path of awareness means making friends with the parts of you that you don't like and other people don't like. And that's very difficult.
yeah.
I'd rather hide it all away, brush it under the carpet, so to speak, and get. So facing it
Yeah.
is difficult work.
Yes. Yes. exactly. So, after so many years of practice and teaching, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you
I
strong?
could say habit. Oh, I enjoy the qigong in the morning in my garden. I enjoy it. I'm doing the one which goes up to the sky and I see the
Mm,
birds flying.
yeah,
I Yeah, I might see a jet plane going across the sky and think, oh no, the environment. So I'm connecting with the world
yeah,
each morning, the beauty and the trouble.
mm,
It feels very good. The
yeah,
meditation is the same. I like trying to know what is my mind, what is it like? Most people don't really know what their mind is like. It's just drives them.
yeah,
They never turn back and looked into it and thought, well, and it's not fixed, but at the moment, what's it doing now? Oh yeah, wow, it's doing that. And I think it's like the final David Attenborough journey,
mm,
like the jungle,
mm,
full of beauty of
yeah,
the mind, the forest of the mind. It's like, wow, such danger, such beauty, all in there.
mm,
And it just takes a little bit of discipline to sit quietly and observe it. And I think it's very so answering your question, it's rewarding, at times pleasurable,
mm,
and longer term, I can really sense it stops me messing up.
mm. What messing up? Are we talking again about reactions or taking the bad
Yeah,
decision?
like saying to my wife something unkind, or
Mm,
just, yeah, to a shopkeeper not smiling, or you know what I mean, just moments of less awareness. It just writing an email so quickly and sending it before I've really been with the content. All those things, when we mess up, we cause ourselves problems.
yeah, yeah,
Or just a self-critical voice in my head that I don't notice, like I'm no good.
right.
I mean, I like to notice those voices. They need a bit of love, those voices.
Good. And it's good to see them in light of, oh hey, what's the trigger there? Or
Yeah,
what's happening right now that the voice came out? Okay.
well, before going to why they're there, they just need a cuddle.
True. That's true.
I think this is what I've learned from mindfulness, that I can, from psychotherapy and from philosophy, I can look at why.
Mm,
But with mindfulness, I'm not doing that. I'm looking at where. And the where means I can cuddle it. I can hold it in my mind, in my attention, and I can approach it with some understanding. I don't really need to know why it's there in a way.
yeah.
Sometimes I do, sometimes it just occurs, but really what's needed is to, like anyone with a problem, a friend with a problem, they just need to be listened to. They often don't need advice.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, yeah, time to listen to my little demons.
Yes, they are really demons.
Yeah.
And so you're also working with younger children or young teenagers, or what is the challenge
Well,
right there?
not not directly. I
Mm,
supervise and mentor the work being done with teenagers with psychological issues like anxiety, eating
mm,
disorders, or depression. So we're using mindfulness. Excuse me. We're using mindfulness on an 8-week course to help them understand through their embodied understanding
mhm,
of stress and how
mm,
to work with it. Um, and it's interesting. They're difficult to work with because they're socially anxious. They're shy. They're a bit, attitude, and a bit cynical. But actually, they're very, very bright brains,
mhm.
very bright little beings. These teenagers, and they learn so fast, and they often at the end of the 8-week course it makes some significant lifelong change,
Mm,
attitudes towards themselves
yeah,
or their parents.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I do a little bit of work with
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 that.
that group of people.
Yeah, well, that's quite exciting, isn't it? To be able to kind of massage these concepts or these experiences into the future generations so that
Mm,
they can be educated from early on into
yeah.
these skills, the skill of awareness.
What's needed though is more of a public health approach rather than a clinical approach.
Hmm.
The clinical approach dealing with the problems when they arise. The public health one is okay, vaccinate everyone. Well, hey, just imagine
Yeah.
everyone getting mindfulness a
Mm.
little bit, not big stuff, but just a little bit in the curriculum at school. And
Yeah, exactly.
vaccination against reactivity, like, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole other aspect. I'm reading a book about it by Gabor Mate. I don't know, you
Uh,
probably heard about him. And he is really explaining the disconnect between, the how we deal, how the medical world does not is not educated enough on stress prevention and
mm,
awareness, and they're not combined and seen in a
yeah,
more holistic way. It is impressive. So.
yeah.
Um, but I have
Mm.
one more question for you.
Okay.
My final question is, why is movement your constant?
Oh, um, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is from the quark to the solar system, there isn't anything else. There is only movement. There is nothing steady, static, completely still anywhere. So maybe it's a truth of existence is movement. You could call it energy, movement. It's constant because it is constant. Why is it my constant? Well, I kind of noticed that it is. That's the truth. So, um, I mean, it's not to say I'm not still. There's movement in stillness. There's stillness in movement. So, what we mean by the word movement, I don't know. I think in, I'm gonna end with this rather lovely quote from a teacher called Analayo, a Buddhist monk called Analayo, contemporary writer teacher, and he says, and this is my answer: keep calmly knowing change.
Mm.
Keep calmly knowing change. That's a
Yeah,
whole teaching. That's it. That is all of it.
yeah,
Keep calmly knowing and change.
yeah.
So that's why movement is my constant because that's the way it is.
Yes, exactly. That's the way it is. Thank you so much, KV. This was a wonderful and rich conversation with you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. Thank you for speaking. Very nice. Good luck with your project. Very good.